She arrived without fanfare. No salute, no introduction, just the steady hum of boots on concrete as a single figure stepped off the transport plane. Captain Elena Ramirez, 41. Flight hours classified. Combat history redacted. She carried one duffel and a quiet confidence that unsettled the younger men watching from the hangar doors. They didn't speak at first. They just stared. Someone whispered, "Is that her?" Another muttered, "She doesn't look like a pilot." A few chuckled, not cruelly, but carelessly. They didn't know her. All they saw was a woman, alone, unannounced, and assigned to Falcon Base without explanation. The base had its own rhythm. Every man here had earned his seat in the sky. Most had seen war up close. They weren't unkind, just wary. New arrivals usually came with noise, stories, reputations. She came with nothing. No one met her at the airstrip. No one helped carry her gear. She didn't ask. Inside the mess hall, the air went still when she walked through. She sat alone, tray untouched. She didn't look around for friends. She didn't need anyone. That unsettled them more than anything. The next morning, the pilots gathered early. Roster day. New flight assignments were posted every Monday at 0600. Names on paper meant something here. They determined who flew what, who led missions, and who was trusted. The list was crisp, freshly pinned to the board. First name, Lieutenant Mason, assigned to the F-22 Raptor. Cheers. Second, Lieutenant Harlow, Strike Eagle. A few high fives. Third, Captain Elena Ramirez. Silence. Beside her name, just one word. Ghosthawk. No designation. No number. Just the name. Faint, like it had been added at the last second. Someone scoffed. "Is that a joke?" Another leaned in. "Ghosthawk. That thing's still on base." "She got assigned to that." A pilot laughed. "They may as well give her a bicycle." The Ghosthawk was a relic. Black, experimental, stealth class. Supposedly faster than the Raptor. But the program was scrapped after 2 test pilots filed reports so vague, the military shut it down. Unreliable, they said. Impossible to control. Dangerous. It had sat in Hangar D for nearly 5 years. No one touched it. Some believed it couldn't be flown. Others believed it shouldn't. Ramirez stood quietly near the board. She read her name. "Read the jet," then folded the paper and slipped it into her jacket. One of the younger pilots called out, "Hey, Captain, looks like they gave you the ghost ride." She didn't answer. He tried again. "Don't worry. It's got great visibility. Right up until the engine quits." She turned, slowly. Her voice calm. "I requested it." That shut him up. The room went still again. "Why would anyone request that?" someone muttered. She didn't respond. She walked away. As the doors closed behind her, the laughter faded. A few exchanged glances. One officer leaned in toward another. "Did she say she requested the Ghosthawk?" "Yeah. Why the hell would she do that?" No one had an answer. That night, long after the hangar had emptied, a single overhead light flickered on in Bay D. A technician walked past and paused. There she was, alone in the dark, flashlight in hand, cockpit open. He raised an eyebrow. She was sitting in the pilot's seat, flipping switches, making notes by hand on an old clipboard. She didn't look up. She didn't explain herself. She just kept working, as if the plane had never been abandoned, as if it had always belonged to her. The air inside Hangar D felt colder than the rest of the base. Metal walls. Concrete floor. No noise but the distant echo of boots passing outside. The Ghosthawk sat in the center like a sleeping animal. Black, angular, unfamiliar. The lights above flickered once, then held steady. Captain Ramirez stood beside the aircraft with a checklist in one hand and a grease pencil in the other. Her jacket was off. Sleeves rolled. She moved slowly, methodically, checking each panel, reading old markings etched into the frame. She wasn't inspecting it like a stranger. She was remembering. The night before, she had stayed late. The hangar had been empty. No tech crews. No officers. Just her and the aircraft no one wanted. But this morning, word had spread. Something was happening in Bay D. A few pilots gathered near the open doors, pretending to be on a break. One of them, a tall lieutenant with aviator glasses, whispered, "Is she seriously trying to fly that thing?" Another replied, "I heard it doesn't even start." "Doesn't need to." A third added, "She'll never get clearance." Inside, Ramirez reached beneath the nose, found the hidden panel, opened it. The startup codes were still there. Faded. Handwritten. She memorized them anyway. A soft voice behind her said, "You know they're watching, right?" She didn't turn around. It was Sergeant Halvorson, one of the maintenance leads. Older. Quiet. Respected. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "They think you're wasting your time," he said. "I'm not here for their time," she replied. He nodded slowly. "You're really taking it up?" "Yes." Everyone else who tried ended up walking back. "I won't." There was no arrogance in her voice, just certainty. He studied her for a moment. "The systems are twitchy. Half the sensors were hand-built. If the power surges mid-flight, you lose comms. Maybe control." "I know." He looked at the clipboard in her hand. "You already logged the pre-flight." She handed it to him. He scanned the paper. It was flawless. Clean. Precise. No extra words. No room for error. Halvorson exhaled through his nose. "Most of these kids don't even know how to fly without an onboard AI. You're using manual trim." "I don't trust computers." He smiled at that. Just a little. Outside the hangar, one of the pilots whistled loud enough to be heard. "Hey, you need a tow truck for takeoff, Captain." The others laughed. Halvorson looked toward the door, then back to her. "You gonna say something?" She shook her head. "No, I'll let the jet speak." That afternoon, the commander's office received a short message. "Request authorization for test flight, Ghosthawk X-91, pilot, Captain E. Ramirez." It took 2 hours for the reply to come through. The staff passed it around in disbelief. "Clearance granted. 1 flight. No support, asterisk asterisk." No one had flown it in 5 years. No one had requested it, since the program was shelved. But someone at command had signed the form. No explanation. Just a signature. The next morning, before sunrise, Ramirez was on the runway. No audience. No ceremony. Just the low buzz of lights along the flight path. She climbed into the cockpit. Powered up systems one by one. No HUD. No voice prompts. Just dials and numbers. For a moment, everything went black. Then the console flickered to life. She pressed her comm. "Tower, this is Ghosthawk X-91. Ready for engine test." Static. Then a voice answered. Hesitant. "X-91. You're actually flying?" "Affirmative." "Roger that, Captain. Good luck." She didn't need luck. She needed altitude. The runway lights shimmered in the cold morning haze. No other aircraft moved. No crews bustled. Just the low, pulsing hum of the Ghosthawk's engines coming online for the first time in years. From a distance, it didn't sound like a fighter jet. It sounded like something older, deeper, mechanical and alive. Inside the control tower, 2 junior officers leaned over the radar screen. "Is she really doing this?" one asked. The other nodded slowly. "She's already in pre-roll. No backup crew. No wingman. Should we call the commander?" Too late. He approved it. On the tarmac, Captain Ramirez adjusted the straps on her harness. She moved with calm precision. No hesitation. The cockpit sealed shut with a deep hiss, and the canopy darkened automatically. She checked her gauges. Oil pressure. Fuel balance. Flight surfaces. All green. At least for now. The tower radioed again. "X-91, confirm intent." Her voice came through steady. "Test flight. 30-minute loop. Returning to base. No weapons. No formation. Understood. You are cleared for takeoff. Across the base, a few heads turned. Pilots looked out from windows. Mechanics paused mid-task. No one had seen the Ghosthawk move under its own power in years. Some believed it never would again. Others thought it shouldn't. The jet rolled forward. Slow at first. Tires humming against the concrete. Then faster. The nose lifted. The landing gear tucked in. And just like that, the Ghosthawk was airborne. No fanfare. No roar. Just silence. The radar screens inside the tower blinked once. Then twice. Then nothing. "Oh, where did she go?" one officer said, tapping the screen. "She's off radar." "That can't be. She's airborne. She just took off." "I know, but she's not pinging." "Transponder. Active. So why can't we see her?" "I don't know." 20,000 feet above sea level, Ramirez leveled out. The controls were heavier than she remembered, but they responded. She adjusted the trim manually. No AI. No fly-by-wire assist. It was just her and the machine. The jet didn't vibrate. It pulsed. Like a heartbeat under metal. Every turn had to be calculated. Every movement tested. Below her, the clouds rolled slowly across the mountains. The sunrise cut through the sky in narrow, golden beams. Then something happened. The HUD, ancient as it was, flickered once. A warning. Not a malfunction. A signal. She looked at the old panel and saw a blinking light-marked trace. It shouldn't have been there. The Ghosthawk was still alive. More than just airworthy. It was listening. Reacting. Learning. She banked left. No resistance. Dipped into a shallow dive. The altimeter spun but held. Even with its age, the aircraft felt stable. Better than stable. Balanced. Like it wanted to be in the air again. Down below, in the tower, chaos stirred. She's not squawking. No visual on satellite. We've lost all telemetry. Someone picked up a direct line. "Commander, we've got a problem." He arrived 5 minutes later, eyes sharp. Looked at the dark radar screen. Then at the silent radio. "She's up there," he said. "How do you know?" He turned toward the windows. "Because if she wasn't, we'd hear the crash by now." Out over the open sky, Ramirez pushed the throttle gently. Not all the way. Not yet. The Ghosthawk responded like it had been waiting years for this flight. She looked down at the base, now invisible beneath the clouds. For the first time in a long while, she smiled. It wasn't just a test flight anymore. It was proof. The Ghosthawk returned to base with the same eerie silence it had left with. No sonic boom. No roar. Just a shadow descending through the clouds, too quiet for what it was. As the landing gear touched down, a few technicians near the runway stepped back instinctively. They weren't expecting her to make it back at all. Not in one piece. Inside the tower, no one said a word. The radar was still blank. No signal. No pings. Yet there she was, clear as day, guiding the jet to a perfect landing. Smooth. Controlled. Like she had done it 100 times before. When the Ghosthawk rolled to a stop, the engines wound down with a low groan. Not a breakdown. More like a long exhale after years of silence. The canopy hissed open. Ramirez climbed out slowly, her face unreadable, flight suit dusted with frost from the high altitude. She didn't wave, didn't look for applause. She just stepped down and walked toward the hangar. A junior pilot nearby blinked in disbelief. She made it back. Another one replied, "How? That thing was supposed to be unflyable." Word spread across the base in less than an hour. People started asking questions. Was it real? Did she actually take it up alone? How long was she airborne? Why wasn't she on radar? None of the answers made sense. But the footage didn't lie. One of the perimeter cameras had captured the takeoff and landing. No tricks. No stunts. Just clean flight. Later that day, Ramirez filed her report. 1 page. Handwritten. No dramatic language. No requests. Just system notes, flight conditions, fuel data, and a simple conclusion. Aircraft responds within margin. Further tests recommended. She left the report on the commander's desk and walked out without a word. The commander picked it up and read it twice. He didn't say anything, but his expression shifted. A small frown. Not confusion, calculation. That evening, she returned to Hangar D, alone again. She began wiping down the Ghosthawk with a clean cloth, removing ice and dust from its joints, like she had done it for years. A few feet behind her, Halvorsen stood watching. "You're not done, are you?" he asked quietly. "No," she replied. "What now?" She glanced up at the dark hangar ceiling, then back at the jet. "Red flags in 3 days." Halvorsen raised an eyebrow. "You're taking this thing into red flag." She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Ramirez, that's full simulation combat. With real squadrons. Live tracking. If you mess this up..." "I won't." She said it flat, but not cold. It wasn't arrogance. It was belief. Halvorsen looked at her for a long moment, then at the aircraft. "You've flown it before, haven't you?" A pause. "I know what it can do," she said. He didn't press. He just gave a short nod and walked away. Outside the hangar, the base lights cast long shadows. Ramirez stood there a moment longer, looking up at the Ghosthawk. The name was barely visible now, paint chipped, lettering faded. But it didn't matter. She wasn't interested in names. She was preparing for something else. That night, her request landed in the operations office. Red flag entry, solo flight, Ghosthawk X-91, pilot, Captain Ramirez. By morning, it was approved. No support crew. No formation. Just her. And the jet that no one else could fly. Red flag began at dawn. The skies over Nevada stretched wide and empty, hiding what would soon become a battlefield of machines. Dozens of jets from allied nations were already lined up, ready for the most advanced simulation in the world. Every aircraft was tracked, logged, and matched to elite pilots with confirmed combat hours. Everyone except one. The Ghosthawk wasn't listed on the public roster. Her call sign wasn't announced over the briefings. No one introduced Captain Elena Ramirez at the pre-mission table. She didn't sit with the others. She wasn't invited. Her flight plan came through a closed channel, cleared by someone far above the base commander. Most of the pilots didn't even know she was participating. The few who did thought it was a formality. A retired experimental jet with one aging pilot? They saw her as a footnote, maybe a test run for tracking anomalies. No one expected her to show up in the sky. No one even knew how to simulate her on radar. By 0800, the exercise was live. Blue team versus red team. American, British, German, and Canadian squadrons flew in tight formations, executing complex maneuvers, testing airspace, and eliminating targets with precision. At 0817, something strange happened. A red team formation of 4 was wiped from the simulation. No warning, no incoming signal, no missile lock, just sudden elimination, as if they'd flown into a black hole. Their comms crackled once, then went dark. The tower logged it as a glitch. They reset the feed. Nothing changed. At 0821, a second squadron reported visual disruption. "Control, this is Viper 6. I just saw something cut across my front axis. No engine sound. No ID. Repeat, Viper 6. You saw what?" I don't know. It wasn't on radar. I just felt it pass." 2 minutes later, that entire unit was marked as eliminated. The red flag command tent buzzed with confusion. Officers gathered around screens that showed only static, where combat footage should be. No missile trails. No thermal heat signatures. Just silence. At 0826, a British Typhoon pilot called in with a shaky voice. "Control, this is Kilo 9. I've been flying for 16 years. I've never seen anything move like that. It came from nowhere. I blinked and it was past me. Then my system locked. I'm out of the game." The commander finally asked the question. Who the hell is flying out there? A technician scanned the logs, then paused. There's one untagged aircraft still in the air. Who? The tech clicked through encrypted files. Ghosthawk X-91. Registered to Captain Ramirez. The room went silent. Didn't that thing get decommissioned? She's flying solo, sir. The commander leaned in, eyes narrowing at the blank screen. She just took out 2 full squadrons. Without detection. Without backup. A colonel standing nearby whispered, "That jet was never meant for this kind of mission." The commander shook his head slowly. Maybe it wasn't the jet. Out over the test range, Ramirez banked hard above the desert. The Ghosthawk moved like nothing else in the sky. No afterburner trails, no audible brake. Just motion, impossible to track. She stayed below radar range, using the landscape to her advantage, slicing through canyons and popping up only to strike. Every movement was deliberate, every decision silent. Her hands never shook. Her eyes never left the horizon. By 0835, the scoreboard showed it clearly. 13 aircraft eliminated. 1 still airborne. No one laughed anymore. The tension inside the command tent was thick enough to choke on. Screens flickered with static, voices buzzed over radios, and officers barked orders, trying to piece together what was happening. But no one could explain it. A ghost in the sky was dismantling their best pilots one by one, leaving nothing but confusion in its wake. Captain Elena Ramirez was a specter above the desert, unseen, unheard, unstoppable. The Ghosthawk seemed alive, responding to her every command as if it were an extension of her body. It wasn't just flying, it was hunting. She pressed the throttle forward, diving low into the canyon's shadow. Below, the simulation's opposing pilots scrambled to keep up, but the Ghosthawk was always a step ahead, disappearing behind rock walls, then bursting out to strike from impossible angles. No one knew where she'd be next. Inside the cockpit, Ramirez's face was calm. Her fingers danced across the manual controls, her eyes flicking between instruments and the horizon. No digital aids, no autopilot, just instinct and skill. A sudden blip appeared on her limited radar, a red team fighter attempting an ambush. She adjusted course, banking sharply. The Ghosthawk shuddered but held steady. She caught the enemy off guard. A quick burst from the hidden cannon, and the target vanished from the simulation feed. The silence in the command tent broke with gasps. Target eliminated. A young lieutenant whispered. Ramirez knew every second counted. Red flag wasn't just a game. It was a proving ground for pilots who lived in skies far more dangerous than this. Every move here could shape real missions, real lives. She had one chance to prove the Ghosthawk was more than a relic, more than a forgotten experiment. Suddenly, her cockpit alarm beeped. Communication crackled. X-91, this is Control. You are exceeding flight parameters. Return to base immediately. She didn't answer. Instead, she pushed the jet harder, weaving through narrow passes, testing limits no modern fighter dared touch. The Ghosthawk responded perfectly, like a wild stallion running free. Control radioed again, voice tense. Captain Ramirez, this is a direct order. Abort mission. Her fingers hovered over the radio switch. Then she pressed it. This mission is not over. Not until I say it is. The room in the command tent grew colder. Back in the sky, a swarm of fighters appeared on radar, converging on her position. Red and blue team jets moving fast, intent on interception. Ramirez's pulse quickened, but only just. She smiled behind the visor. They thought they could trap her. They didn't know the Ghosthawk. She flipped the controls, sending the jet into a sudden vertical climb. The pursuer struggled to follow the impossible angle. The Ghosthawk vanished into cloud cover, silent as a shadow. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, one by one, the pursuing jets reported system failures. Communications dropped. Radar glitches. Engines sputtered. Back at the base, engineers scrambled to find explanations. A voice over the radio broke the silence. X-91 confirmed status. Ramirez's voice was steady. Ghosthawk is operational. Mission continues. With a final burst, she streaked out from the clouds, weaving between enemy jets like a phantom. The sky echoed with bursts of simulated fire as she dismantled the interception squadron. By the time the exercise ended, only 2 jets remained active on the blue team's side. The command tent fell silent. The commander finally spoke, voice low but resolute. She's rewritten the rules of engagement. Outside, as the sun set behind the desert mountains, Ramirez taxied the Ghosthawk back to Hangar D. Inside, Halvorsen was waiting. "You made it," he said simply. She nodded. "The jet isn't just a relic. It's a weapon. A ghost." Halvorsen looked at her, eyes serious. "And you're the only one who can fly it." Ramirez looked up at the dark silhouette of the Ghosthawk. "I intend to keep flying." The night was quiet, but inside Hangar D, the Ghosthawk seemed almost alive. Its black surface reflected the dim lights, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. Captain Ramirez stood beside it, still wearing her flight suit, her eyes tracing every curve, every panel. The jet had proven itself. More than that, it had rewritten the game. But the cost was just beginning to reveal itself. Halvorsen approached, his footsteps slow but deliberate. "You're stirring up a storm, Elena." She looked up, tired but unwavering. "The storm's already here. They can't ignore the Ghosthawk anymore." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Command's already talking about grounding the program. Too many questions. Too many risks. They want to scrap it before anyone else flies it." Ramirez shook her head. "They don't understand. This jet, she's not a risk. She's an advantage. And I'm the only one who can make it work." Halvorsen's eyes softened. "I know you've flown it before. But you're not invincible. And the Ghosthawk, it demands everything." She smiled faintly. "I'm ready." The next morning, the base was buzzing with rumors. Some called her a hero. Others whispered about reckless defiance. But the commander called her into his office, without fanfare. "Captain Ramirez," he began, folding his hands on the desk. "Your performance at Red Flag was unprecedented, but it's also put us in a difficult position." She met his gaze evenly. "I didn't fly that jet to cause problems. I flew to prove it can be done." He nodded slowly. "And now, Command wants a demonstration. Public. Official. They want to know what this Ghosthawk can do, and if it's safe." Her heart skipped, but she kept calm. "When?" "2 weeks from today. We'll arrange a live flight test. Top brass will be here. The media, too." She swallowed hard. "And the jet?" "Fully inspected, but with limits. No unauthorized maneuvers. No solo flights." Ramirez's jaw clenched. "That's not enough." The commander sighed. "I know, but it's a start." Back in the hangar, Ramirez prepared the Ghosthawk for the test. Every inch was examined, polished, calibrated. The crew worked tirelessly, but she noticed the hesitation in their eyes. They respected the jet, but feared what it represented. Halvorsen pulled her aside. "You ready for this?" She nodded. "More than ever." The day of the demonstration arrived with heavy skies and a biting wind. Crowds gathered, cameras zoomed, and high-ranking officials took their seats. The atmosphere was electric, expectation mixed with doubt. Ramirez climbed into the cockpit, heart steady but mind alert. The canopy sealed. The jet hummed alive beneath her, awakening from slumber. As she taxied onto the runway, she caught a glimpse of the commander watching intently, his expression unreadable. She called tower control. "Ghosthawk X, 91 ready for takeoff." "Cleared," came the reply. The engines roared, quiet but fierce, and the jet surged forward, lifting smoothly into the gray sky. Ramirez pushed the Ghosthawk to its limits. Sharp turns, steep climbs, evasive maneuvers. The crowd watched, breathless. The jet danced through the air, a black shadow against the clouds. Suddenly, warning lights flickered inside the cockpit. Systems flickered. The Ghosthawk shuddered violently, alarms blaring. Ramirez's hands flew over controls, stabilizing the aircraft. She realized the jet was resisting, pushing back against strain. The crowd gasped. She forced the jet into a controlled dive, regaining stability. Then, with calm precision, she leveled out. Ghosthawk responding, she reported. Systems stabilizing. On the ground, the commander exhaled, eyes fixed on the screen. Ramirez pulled into a final maneuver, a steep vertical climb, before cutting engines and gliding toward the runway. She touched down perfectly, rolling to a stop. The hangar doors opened as technicians rushed forward. Ramirez climbed out, face flushed but victorious. The commander approached, nodding slowly. You prove the Ghosthawk is real, but it's still fragile, and it needs a pilot like you. She looked him in the eye. Then I'm not done. Behind her, the jet sat silently, ready for the next chapter. The past was behind them, but the future, the one only she and the Ghosthawk could write, was just beginning. The days after the demonstration were a whirlwind. Headlines called her the Ghosthawk pilot, the woman who flew the impossible. Some praised her courage. Others questioned the wisdom of resurrecting a jet so old, so untested in real combat. But Captain Elena Ramirez didn't read the papers. She was focused on what came next. The military brass gathered in a secret conference room. Plans were being made, tests, upgrades, missions. The Ghosthawk was no longer just a relic, it was a strategic asset. Yet, with that came new pressures, expectations, and scrutiny. Ramirez found herself at the center of a storm she never asked for. Captain, a general said during one briefing, voice firm but respectful, your flight changed how we think about air superiority. But the Ghosthawk needs to evolve. You'll lead a special unit, experimental pilots flying advanced jets inspired by X-91's design. She nodded, absorbing the weight of responsibility. This was bigger than just flying. It was about shaping the future of aerial combat. Back at the base, the Ghosthawk waited silently in its hangar, the shadows playing over its sleek body. Ramirez often found herself there late at night, alone with the jet. She ran her hands along the worn panels, remembering every flight, every challenge, every moment in the sky when it felt like she and the machine were one. One evening, Halvorsen joined her. You've done more than anyone imagined, he said quietly. She smiled faintly. It never felt like just me. It was always her. The jet. He nodded, watching her carefully. But now the real test begins. The world is watching. Weeks passed. The special unit took shape. Elite pilots handpicked for skill and resolve. Ramirez trained them personally, passing on what she'd learned. Not just about flying, but about trust. Trust between pilot and machine, between teammates, and within themselves. Then came the first real mission. Classified, dangerous, and unlike anything they'd faced before. Ramirez led the squadron into hostile territory, flying the Ghosthawk once more. The skies were unforgiving. Enemy radar was intense. But the Ghosthawk moved like a shadow, silent, swift, and unpredictable. During a critical moment, an enemy missile locked onto her wingman. Without hesitation, Ramirez dove between them and the missile, her jet absorbing the blast with systems barely holding. The cockpit shook violently, alarms screaming. But she held steady, guiding her squadron to safety. When they returned, the base erupted in cheers. The Ghosthawk had saved lives. Later, as she stood beside the battered jet, a young pilot approached her. Captain Ramirez, how do you do it? How do you keep flying that thing? She looked at the Ghosthawk, then back at him. It's not just flying, she said softly. It's believing. Believing that no matter what they say, no matter the odds, you can be more. You and the machine, together. Years passed. The Ghosthawk program evolved, inspiring new technology, new pilots. Ramirez's name became legend, an emblem of courage and tenacity. But she never forgot the silence of those early flights, the doubt in the eyes around her, or the moment the commander whispered. She took the Ghosthawk. In the end, It wasn't just about a jet. It was about breaking boundaries, about proving that sometimes the impossible is just waiting for someone brave enough to try. And Elena Ramirez was that someone.